The vast emptiness of space stretched before the Xylosian Galactic Federation exploratory vessel Pathfinder as it glided through the uncharted region. Captain Kvar stood on the bridge, his four-fingered hands clasped behind his back, observing the swirling gases of a distant nebula on the main view screen. His pale blue skin reflected the soft lights of the console, highlighting the intricate pattern of scales that adorned his elongated skull. "Captain, we're picking up unusual readings from the third planet in this system," announced Science Officer Lyra, her slender form hunched over her station. Unlike Kvar, her Xylosian physiology featured smooth lavender skin and large, pupil-less eyes that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. "The atmospheric composition is concerning." Kvar moved to her station, the ship's artificial gravity barely compensating for his naturally light build. "Define concerning, Science Officer." "Highly corrosive oxygen levels, Captain. Nitrogen abundance. Trace elements that will be toxic to most sentient species. And the radiation levels." She paused, rechecking her instruments. "They're within Class 15 parameters." From the pilot's chair came a low, rumbling groan. Grak, the massive Grochner pilot, shifted uncomfortably, causing his seat to creak in protest. His rocky, gray-green skin seemed to pale slightly at the news. "A Class 15, he muttered, his gravelly voice barely audible. "Those aren't supposed to exist outside of theoretical models." Kvar's expression remained impassive as he studied the readings. The Federation's classification system for habitable worlds was meticulously designed, with Class 1 representing paradise worlds and Class 10 being the upper limit of what most spacefaring civilizations considered remotely habitable. Beyond, there were the theoretical Deathworlds, environments so hostile that the Federation had never documented intelligent life evolving on them. Class 15 was the highest theoretical designation, representing a planetary environment so lethal that most Federation species would require complete environmental suits to survive even brief exposure, assuming the crushing gravity didn't kill them first. "Proceed with standard planetary documentation protocol," Kvar instructed, ever the professional. "Designate as Xylos 15 and prepare a comprehensive scan before we move on." "Yes, Captain," Lyra replied, her slender fingers dancing across her console. "Initiating deep scan." "Wait." She paused, confusion evident in her voice. "I'm detecting artificial signals. Multiple frequencies. Organized patterns consistent with communication networks." Kvar's brow ridge rose slightly, the closest he ever came to showing surprise. "Verify those readings, Science Officer." "Already done, sir. And there's more." Lyra's voice trembled slightly with excitement. "Visual confirmation of artificial structures on the surface. Major cities, transportation networks, energy generation facilities. Captain, there's an advanced technological civilization down there." Grak turned in his seat, his massive jaw hanging open. "That's impossible. Nothing could evolve to sentience in that hellscape." "Evidently, Pilot Grak, you are mistaken," Kvar replied coolly, though his own mind raced with the implications. "Science Officer, can you determine the nature of this civilization? Are they visitors? Colonists, perhaps?" Lyra continued to study her readings. "The settlement patterns suggest a native species, Captain. They've spread across all major land masses, adapted to various climate zones. And some of these structures..." She zoomed in on her display. "Some of them appear quite old. Centuries, possibly millennia." "This changes everything," Kvar said quietly. "Prepare a first contact protocol. We must approach with extreme caution." "Sir," Grak protested, his voice rising with anxiety, "regulations state that first contact with previously unknown species should be conducted by specialized diplomatic vessels, not exploratory ships like ours." "I'm aware of regulations, Pilot," Kvar replied sharply. "But we're months away from the nearest Federation outpost, and this discovery is too significant to ignore. We will proceed with caution, but we will proceed." As the Pathfinder moved into closer orbit, the crew continued their scans, each new reading adding to their astonishment. The planet's surface was dominated by violent weather patterns, with storms that would tear apart most Federation structures. The gravity was nearly 1.3 times the Federation standard, enough to cause serious physiological stress to most species. The biodiversity was alarming. Countless predatory species, venomous flora, and microbial life that would be lethal to most Federation citizens. And yet, somehow, an intelligent species not only survived, but thrived in this environment. I've located a smaller settlement that appears to be some form of outpost, or research station, Lyra reported after several hours of observation. It's positioned on a plateau in a moderately temperate region, though temperate is relative on this world. That might be our best option for initial contact, Kvar decided. Prepare a communication attempt on standard Federation frequencies. The tension on the bridge was palpable as Lyra sent the first contact message, a simple mathematical sequence designed to demonstrate intelligence and peaceful intent. Minutes passed with no response. Try again on a broader spectrum, Kvar ordered. They may use different communication technologies. Suddenly, the view screen flickered to life, displaying a face that caused the entire bridge crew to flinch involuntarily. The creature had pinkish-brown skin, completely exposed with no scales or protective exoskeleton. 2 small eyes, a protruding nasal structure, and a mouth filled with what appeared to be omnivorous teeth. Short dark fur covered the top of its head. It was simultaneously familiar in its bipedal form and utterly alien in its apparent vulnerability. This is Colonel Eva Rostova of Fortitude Research and Defense Outpost, Earth. The creature spoke in a clear, confident voice that the ship's universal translator managed to process with surprising ease. We detected your vessel entering orbit and your transmission attempts. Identify yourselves and state your purpose. Kvar stepped forward, recovering his composure quickly. I am Captain Kvar of the Xylosian Galactic Federation vessel Pathfinder. We are an exploratory vessel charting this region of space. We did not expect to find intelligent life on this planet. The creature, Colonel Rostova, raised one of the patches of fur above her eyes. And why is that, Captain? Your world's environmental conditions are extremely hostile by our standards, Kvar explained diplomatically. We classify it as a Class 15 Deathworld, theoretically unsuitable for advanced life. To the crew's surprise, Rostova's mouth curled upward at the corners in what they would later learn was an expression of amusement. Well, Captain, we call it Earth, and we've been calling it home for quite a long time. She paused, studying them through the screen. Would you like to come down and see it for yourselves? We'd be interested in learning more about your Federation. Before Kvar could respond, Grak made a strangled sound of protest. Kvar silenced him with a gesture. We would be honored, Colonel Rostova. However, we would need to make extensive preparations. Your atmosphere and gravity would be challenging for us. Of course, Rostova nodded. We'll transmit our environmental data to help you prepare. Our outpost has facilities for visitors with different requirements. We've had some limited contact with other spacefaring species before, though none from your Federation. This was another surprise for the Pathfinder crew. Other species had encountered these beings? Why was there no record of this in Federation databases? We'll prepare for descent and contact you again when ready, Kvar confirmed. Pathfinder out. As the communication ended, the bridge erupted in a flurry of exclamations and questions. Captain, you can't seriously be considering going down there. Grak protested loudly. Even with environmental suits, the risk is calculated and necessary, Kvar interrupted firmly. This discovery challenges everything we understand about habitable environments and evolution. Science Officer Lyra will accompany me, along with Medical Officer Trell and Security Officer Dex. I volunteer as well, Captain, Grak said, surprising everyone, including himself. Kvar regarded the massive pilot thoughtfully. Your physiological stress would be significant in that gravity pilot. All the more reason to include me, Grak insisted with unexpected resolve. If I can function there, anyone can. In truth, Grak was terrified of the planet below, but something deeper than fear drove him. Curiosity, perhaps, or the rare opportunity to witness something no Grockner had seen before. Very well, Kvar conceded. Prepare the shuttle and environmental equipment. We depart in 6 hours. The descent to the planet's surface was harrowing for the Pathfinder crew. Even with the shuttle's advanced stabilizers, the turbulence from Earth's atmosphere battered them mercilessly. Grak piloted with uncharacteristic focus, fighting against air currents stronger than any he'd encountered before. As they broke through the cloud layer, the landscape below came into view, vast stretches of mixed terrain, from dense vegetation to barren rocky formations. The outpost was visible now, a cluster of structures nestled against a mountainside. "This is Pathfinder shuttle requesting landing clearance," Grak transmitted, his voice barely betraying his anxiety. "Clearance granted, Pathfinder," came the reply. "Follow the beacon to landing pad 3. Be advised, we're experiencing light winds of approximately 30 knots. Nothing serious." Grak exchanged alarmed glances with Kvar. What these beings considered light winds would be categorized as dangerous storms on most Federation worlds. The shuttle touched down with a heavy thud, the landing gear straining under the increased gravity. The crew checked their environmental suits one final time, full body protection with enhanced joint servos to compensate for the gravity. "Atmosphere integrity confirmed," Lyra reported, "though these suits won't last more than 12 hours before requiring recharge." Kvar nodded. "That should be sufficient for our initial contact. Remember your training. Observe, document, but interact minimally until we better understand their culture and biology." The shuttle door opened, allowing them their first direct view of Earth. Even through their filtered visors, the brightness of the sun seemed harsh. The air shimmered with heat above the landing pad. And waiting for them was a small group of the native beings, humans, according to the data they'd received. Colonel Rostova stood at the forefront, flanked by several others in similar uniforms. Beside her stood a taller male human with dark skin and a thoughtful expression. "Welcome to Earth, Captain Kvar," Rostova called out as they cautiously descended the shuttle ramp. Each step felt laborious in the crushing gravity, especially for Grak, whose species was adapted to a much lighter environment. "This is Dr. Eris Thorn, our xenolinguist and cultural specialist." The taller human stepped forward with an expression they would later learn was a smile. "We're honored to welcome representatives of the Xylosian Federation. Your visit represents a significant moment for humanity." Kvar inclined his head in the traditional Xylosian greeting. "The honor is ours, Dr. Thorn. May I present Science Officer Lyra, Medical Officer Trell, Security Officer Dex, and our pilot Grak." As introductions continued, the Federation crew couldn't help but marvel at how casually the humans moved in this environment. While the visitors struggled with each step despite their powered suits, the humans stood comfortably, their fragile-looking bodies apparently well adapted to the punishing gravity. "We've prepared a pressurized chamber with adjusted atmospheric composition based on the data you sent," Dr. Thorne explained. "It should be more comfortable for extended conversations." "That is most considerate," Kvar replied, genuinely surprised by the accommodation. As they moved toward the main facility, a sudden commotion erupted from a nearby structure. A small human, significantly smaller than the adults, came running out, chasing what appeared to be a four-legged furry creature with a wagging appendage. "Max! Kevin! Get back here!" called another human from the doorway. Grak froze in terror as the small human and the creature ran directly toward their group. The creature, apparently called Kevin, let out several sharp vocalizations and lunged playfully at the small human. "Predator!" Grak gasped, instinctively reaching for his sidearm before remembering diplomatic protocols. To the visitor's horror, the creature jumped on the small human, who merely fell to the ground laughing as the beast licked its face with a pink tongue. "Sorry about that," Rostova said casually. "Lieutenant Chen's son and his dog. We try to maintain some normalcy for the family station here." Lyra was frantically scanning with her handheld device. "That creature, it has significant jaw strength and predatory dentition. The child is in danger." Dr. Thorne looked confused before understanding dawned. Oh, no. Kevin is a domesticated dog, a companion animal. Humans have lived alongside dogs for thousands of years. They're completely safe. The Federation crew watched in stunned disbelief as the small human hugged the predator before both were called back by the adult. Perhaps we should proceed to the meeting room, Kvar suggested, noticing Grak's continuing distress. The interior of the facility provided some relief from the harsh external conditions. In the specially prepared chamber, the Federation crew were finally able to remove their helmets, though they kept the rest of their environmental suits activated. Better, Colonel Rostova asked as they settled around a conference table. Much appreciated, Kvar acknowledged, taking measured breaths of the adjusted atmosphere. Your facility is surprisingly accommodating. We've had some limited contact with non-terrestrial species before, Dr. Thorne explained, though none from an organized federation of planets. Most were individual explorers or small groups. Why is there no record of your world in our databases? Lyra asked, unable to contain her scientific curiosity. By all accounts, Earth should be documented, especially if other spacefaring species have encountered. You, Rostova, and Thorne exchanged glances. We suspect it's because most visitors don't survive long enough to report back, Rostova stated matter-of-factly. Or if they do, they classify Earth as too dangerous to bother with. You mean they die here? Grak asked, his voice rising in alarm. Not all, Dr. Thorne quickly clarified. But Earth is challenging for most extraterrestrial physiologies. Those who come prepared, like yourselves, usually manage well enough with the right precautions. What we don't understand, Kvar interjected, is how intelligent life evolved here at all. Every evolutionary model we have suggests that environments this harsh produce only simple organisms or at most non-intelligent survival specialists. Rostova smiled again, that strange facial movement that seemed to indicate amusement. Captain, we are survival specialists. Humanity evolved alongside predators that would hunt us, microorganisms that would infect us, and weather that would freeze or boil us, fighting for resources every step of the way. Those conditions didn't prevent intelligence, they demanded it. The conversation continued for hours as both sides exchanged information. The Federation crew learned that Earth was the original homeworld of humans, not a colony as they had initially suspected. Humans had spread across their planet, adapting to nearly every environment from frozen tundras to scorching deserts. They had only recently developed space travel technology, with limited exploration of their own solar system and a few tentative ventures to nearby stars. In turn, the Federation representatives explained their alliance of over 30 spacefaring species, their peaceful exploration mandate, and their system of categorizing worlds. So we're a Class 15 Deathworld, Rostova mused, seemingly proud of the designation. The worst you've encountered. Theoretically worst, Lyra corrected. We've never actually documented a Class 15 before. The classification was mainly theoretical until now. As the initial meeting concluded, Colonel Rostova offered a tour of the facility, a proposition that filled Grak with dread, but which Kvar accepted diplomatically. We'll keep to internal areas compatible with your physiology, she assured them. Even inside the relative safety of the facility, the Federation crew witnessed numerous shocks. Humans casually handle materials that would be considered toxic on other worlds. They maintained living specimens of plants that Lyra's scans indicated contained compounds lethal to most Federation species. Their food preparation area, the kitchen, filled the visitors with horror as they observed humans consuming flesh from other Earth organisms, seasoned with various chemical compounds that Trell quietly identified as poisons in lower concentrations. Would you care to join us for a meal? Dr. Thorne offered innocently, as a staff member sliced what appeared to be muscle tissue from some unfortunate creature. We have specific dietary requirements, Kvar declined diplomatically, but we appreciate the offer. The tour culminated in the facility's control center, where displays monitored various research projects and the surrounding environment. We're tracking a weather system moving in tomorrow, a technician reported to Rostova. Class 3 storm, nothing major. Should pass by the following morning. Lyra discreetly checked the environmental data and blanched. What these humans considered a minor storm would qualify as a catastrophic weather event on most Federation worlds. Captain, Grack whispered urgently, our shuttle isn't rated for those kinds of wind velocities. If that storm hits while we're here. Kvar nodded subtly. Colonel Rostova, we should return to our vessel before your weather system arrives. Our shuttle has limitations. Of course, Rostova acknowledged. Though you're welcome to remain on the surface in our facility if you prefer. The storm really isn't dangerous by our standards. We appreciate the offer, but Kvar's diplomatic response was interrupted by an urgent signal from Dex's communicator. Captain, the security officer reported after checking the message, the Pathfinder has detected an unidentified vessel entering the system. It's not responding to hails. The mood in the control center shifted immediately. Rostova's expression hardened as she turned to her staff. Move to Security Protocol Theta. I want full sensor sweeps and defense systems on standby. Kvar was impressed by the immediate and disciplined response of the human crew. You seem well prepared for unexpected visitors, Colonel. Not all our extraterrestrial encounters have been as pleasant as this one, Captain, she replied grimly. Dr. Thorne, please continue hosting our guests. I need to coordinate with our orbital platform. As Rostova moved to a separate communication station, Dr. Thorne guided the Federation crew to a monitoring display. Our long-range sensors are limited compared to your technology, he explained, but we maintain a defensive perimeter around Earth. The approaching vessel doesn't match any configuration we've encountered before. Dex received another communication from the Pathfinder. Captain, our sensors have identified the vessel. It's a Scragnon scout ship. Kvar tensed visibly. The Scragnon Empire was known to the Federation, a militaristic, expansionist regime that occupied several systems on the outer reaches of known space. They weren't officially hostile to the Federation, but relations were strained at best. We should return to our vessel immediately, Kvar decided. The Scragnon may have followed our course. They're known for their interest in resource-rich worlds. Resources? Dr. Thorne questioned. Even with our planet's challenges? Especially because of them, Lyra explained. Extreme environments often produce unique elements and compounds. The Scragnon wouldn't care about habitability. They use slave labor and automated systems for extraction operations. Colonel Rostova rejoined them, her expression grim. Our orbital platform has made visual contact with the vessel. It's moving into a high orbit and has deployed smaller craft. We're tracking 4 objects descending through the atmosphere. Attack probes, Dex surmised. Standard Scragnon protocol. They send automated systems to assess defensive capabilities before committing actual troops. Then they're in for a surprise, Rostova stated flatly. We don't appreciate uninvited guests with hostile intent. She turned to a communications officer. Alert all Earth Defense Force units. Activate countermeasures, but hold fire until the visitors demonstrate clear hostile intent. Kvar was stunned by the calm efficiency of the humans. Most newly contacted species would be panicking at the prospect of an alien invasion. Yet these humans were responding with organized precision. Colonel, the Scragnon technology is highly advanced, he cautioned. Their weapons are designed to overcome most defensive systems. Rostova gave him a look that somehow conveyed both appreciation for his concern and confidence in her own capabilities. Captain, humanity has been fighting itself and everything else on this planet for thousands of years. We may be new to interstellar travel, but we're very, very good at warfare. Before Kvar could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Incoming, shouted a technician. The probes have launched projectiles, targeting our communications array and defensive emplacements. Return fire, Rostova ordered calmly. Deploying interceptors. On the main display, the Federation crew watched as multiple streaks of light launched from concealed silos around the outpost. The human weapons seemed primitive compared to Scragnon technology, simple kinetic projectiles and guided missiles rather than energy weapons, but they were deployed with surprising tactical sophistication. Two of the Scragnon probes were hit directly, exploding in midair. The others took evasive action, but the humans had anticipated this, creating a calculated field of fire that left the probes with no safe approach vector. Their technology isn't as advanced as we feared, Dr. Thorne observed, studying a data readout. At least, not their defensive systems. The scouts are typically equipped with minimal shielding, Dex explained. They rely on speed and maneuverability rather than protection. A massive explosion rocked the facility as one of the remaining probes managed to deliver its payload to the main communications array. Emergency lights activated, and damage control teams rushed to respond. Status report, Rostova demanded. Communications array destroyed. Minor structural damage to the east wing. No casualties, reported a staff officer. Defensive systems still operational. The last probe is circling for another approach. Target its propulsion system, Rostova ordered. I want that one relatively intact. Kvar exchanged glances with his crew. The human's response was impressively effective, especially for species with no previous experience with Scragnon tactics. The Pathfinder reports that the main Scragnon vessel is deploying a larger landing craft, Dex informed them. Estimated 20 combat units on board. Rostova nodded, unsurprised. They're escalating as expected. Captain Kvar, your vessel should withdraw to a safe distance. This isn't your conflict. With respect, Colonel, it became our conflict when the Scragnon followed our course to your world, Kvar replied firmly. We can provide tactical information about their capabilities and potential vulnerabilities. And we have communications equipment on our shuttle that could replace your damaged array, Lyra added. Grak looked at his fellow crew members in disbelief. Were they truly volunteering to stay on this death world during an alien invasion? But seeing the resolve in Kvar's eyes, the massive pilot found himself reluctantly nodding in agreement. I'll need to know exactly what we're facing, Rostova said, accepting their offer. Dr. Thorne, work with Officer Lyra on the communications. Captain Kvar, your tactical knowledge would be invaluable in the command center. As they moved to their assigned positions, the final Scragnon probe was successfully disabled by the human defenses. It crashed relatively intact several kilometers from the outpost. Recovery team en route, reported a staff officer. ETA 8 minutes. Be advised, Kvar warned, Scragnon technology often includes self-destruct mechanisms to prevent capture. Our teams are aware of the risk, Rostova assured him. They'll approach with extreme caution. On the main tactical display, the larger Scragnon landing craft was now visible, descending through the upper atmosphere. It was significantly more substantial than the probes, a wedge-shaped vessel bristling with weapon emplacements and sensor arrays. Their standard troop deployment typically consists of 15 to 20 combat units, Dex explained, pointing to the display. Heavily armored, equipped with energy weapons and short-range jetpack for tactical mobility. How vulnerable are they to conventional kinetic weapons? Asked the human weapons officer. More vulnerable than you might expect, Dex replied. Their armor is designed primarily to deflect energy attacks. Solid projectiles, especially those with sufficient mass and velocity, can be quite effective. The humans exchanged looks that bordered on eager. Well, we have plenty of those, Rostova stated with grim satisfaction. Meanwhile, Lyra and Dr. Thorne worked rapidly to integrate the shuttle's communication system with the outpost's backup array. Despite the emergency situation, Thorne maintained a calm demeanor that helped settle Lyra's nerves. Your species is remarkably adaptable, she observed as they reconfigured a power coupling, both technologically and psychologically. Necessity, Thorne replied simply. Earth never gave us the luxury of complacency. When something tries to kill you, you either adapt or die. But this level of technological development in such a hostile environment, perhaps because of it, not despite it, Thorne suggested. Harsh conditions create strong selection pressures. Only the most innovative solutions survive. Their work was interrupted by another alarm. The main display showed the Scragnon landing craft touching down approximately 5 kilometers from the outpost. Deployment pattern confirmed, announced the tactical officer. 20 combat units, standard phalanx formation. They're advancing toward the outpost. Activate perimeter defenses, Rostova ordered. Prepare for ground engagement. All non-combat personnel to secure locations. Kvar watched in fascination as the humans prepared for battle. Despite their seemingly fragile physiology, they moved with confident efficiency, checking weapons and equipment with practiced ease. Even more surprising was the variety of their weaponry. Alongside expected energy rifles, clearly adapted from previous extraterrestrial encounters, they carried projectile weapons, explosive devices, and even what appeared to be bladed implements for close combat. "You use physical blades in warfare?" he asked a passing soldier who had a long, serrated knife strapped to his leg. "When necessary," the soldier replied with a disconcerting smile. "Some problems can't be solved with bullets or beams. Besides, batteries die, guns jam, but a good knife never lets you down." This philosophy, this readiness to resort to the most primitive yet reliable methods, was alien to Kvar's understanding of civilized warfare. Yet he couldn't deny its pragmatic wisdom. Outside, the weather was deteriorating as the promised storm system approached. Rain began to fall in heavy sheets, and the wind howled around the facility structures. To the Federation crew, these conditions seemed apocalyptic. To the humans, it was merely an inconvenience, perhaps even a tactical advantage. "The storm will disrupt their sensors," Rostova noted with satisfaction. "Ours are calibrated for Earth's weather patterns. Theirs won't be." The first clash between human defenders and Scragnon troops occurred at the outer perimeter. The outpost's automated defenses inflicted significant damage on the advancing force, but the Scragnon technology allowed them to push forward methodically. "They're deploying energy shields," reported the tactical officer. "Our automated turrets can't penetrate." "Switch to indirect fire," Rostova commanded. "Mortars, trajectory arc 7. Kvar was impressed by the strategic adaptation. The humans were using primitive ballistic weapons that arced over the Scragnon shields, exploiting a common vulnerability in their design. Several explosions erupted among the Scragnon formation, disrupting their advance. The alien troops scattered, seeking cover that would protect them from the unexpected attack vector. "They're regrouping," observed Dex. "Standard flanking protocol." "Just as we expected," Rostova replied. "Trigger the mining charges." The ground beneath several Scragnon troops erupted as buried explosives detonated. The humans had anticipated the enemy's tactical response and prepared accordingly. "Colonel, we've re-established communications with the orbital platform," Dr. Thorne reported, rejoining them in the command center with Lyra. "We also have a channel to the Pathfinder." "Excellent work," Rostova acknowledged. "Captain Kvar, would you like to contact your vessel?" Before Kvar could respond, the facility shook violently as a massive energy blast struck the main defensive barrier. "They brought their heavy weapons online," the tactical officer announced. "Shield integrity at 70% and falling." "Return fire with the pulse cannons," Rostova ordered. "Concentrate on their energy source." The outpost's more advanced defensive weapons activated, firing brilliant blue energy bolts at the Scragnon position. These were clearly not of human origin, suggesting previous extraterrestrial encounters had indeed provided technological benefits. "Sir, the Pathfinder reports that the main Scragnon vessel is powering weapons," Dex informed Kvar. "They appear to be targeting our ship." "Evasive maneuvers, standard protocol," Kvar responded immediately. "Tell them to withdraw to minimum safe distance, but remain in communication range." Amidst the chaos of battle, Grak found himself separated from the others when a secondary explosion collapsed part of a corridor. Disoriented and frightened, the massive pilot stumbled into what appeared to be a medical bay, where human staff were preparing for casualties. "Are you injured?" asked a human female in a white coat, approaching him without any apparent concern for her own safety. "And no," Grak stammered. "I became separated from my group when the passage collapsed." "You're safe here," she assured him, gesturing to a reinforced door. "This section is hardened against attack. I'm Dr. Mei Lin, Chief Medical Officer." Another blast rocked the facility, causing several instrument trays to crash to the floor. Dr. Lin merely sighed and began calmly picking up the scattered tools. "How can you be so composed?" Grak asked incredulously. "We're under attack by one of the most aggressive species in known space, on a planet that's already trying to kill you in a dozen different ways." Dr. Lin gave him a curious look. "This is hardly the worst day I've had this month, friend. Last week we had to evacuate the West Wing because a nest of Titanite hornets decided to build a colony in the ventilation system. Now, that was a challenge." "Hornets?" Grak questioned. "Flying insects about this big," she indicated with her fingers, showing a small gap. "Venomous stingers, highly aggressive when disturbed. One sting won't kill you, but 20 might. They're normally native to the southern continent, but they've been expanding their range." Grak stared at her in disbelief. This human was more concerned about tiny venomous creatures than an invasion of Scragnan warriors. Their conversation was interrupted when the doors burst open and medical staff rushed in with injured defenders on stretchers. Dr. Lin immediately shifted to emergency mode, barking orders and moving with practiced precision. Grak found himself instinctively stepping forward to assist, his large hands surprisingly gentle as he helped move equipment as directed. Despite his fear, the pilot found something oddly calming about the methodical emergency response, as if the humans' confidence in their ability to handle this crisis was somehow infectious. Back in the command center, the battle had reached a critical phase. The Scragnan forces had breached the outer defenses and were approaching the main facility. Rostova had deployed her reserves in a cunning defensive pattern that funneled the attackers into prepared killing zones. But the superior Scragnan technology was slowly overwhelming the human defenses. "We need to disrupt their command and control," Kvar suggested, studying the tactical display. "Scragnan units are highly dependent on centralized direction." "Can we locate their command node?" Rostova asked. Lyra, who had been analyzing sensor data, spoke up. "There's an unusual energy signature near the center of their formation. It could be their tactical coordinator. If we could capture or disable it, their effectiveness would be significantly reduced," Dex added. Dr. Thorne, who had been quietly listening, suddenly spoke. "What about their landing craft? Would it have a backup command system?" "Yes," Kvar confirmed. "Standard Scragnan protocol maintains redundant control systems on the transport." "Then we need to hit both targets simultaneously," Rostova decided. "I'll lead a strike team against their formation. Lieutenant Zhang, prepare a secondary team to attack the landing craft." "Colonel, with respect, that's extraordinarily dangerous," Kvar protested. "Scragnan personal combat systems are designed for maximum lethality." "So are we, Captain," Rostova replied with a grim smile. "Besides, we have an advantage they don't expect." She turned to Lyra. "Your analysis confirmed they're using standard atmosphere in their suits, correct?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, they haven't adapted to Earth's composition." "Then they're in for surprise." Dr. Thorne briefed the teams on Plan Epsilon. As Rostova prepared to depart, Kvar made a decision that surprised even himself. "Colonel, I request permission to accompany your team. My knowledge of Scragnan tactics may prove useful in the field." The human commander studied him for a moment before nodding. "Granted, but stay behind the primary assault line." "No offense, Captain, but your environmental suit is a liability in close combat." Dex stepped forward as well. "I should accompany you as well, sir. As security officer." "You'll remain here and coordinate with the Pathfinder," Kvar interrupted firmly. "If we fail, the ship will need your expertise." The strike team assembled quickly, 12 human soldiers in what appeared to be standard combat gear, though Kvar noted several unusual additions. Each carried small canisters attached to their weapons and wore what seemed to be primitive rebreathers. Plan Epsilon, Thorne explained to Kvar as they prepared to move out, involves exploiting the atmospheric difference. Those canisters contain a highly concentrated oxygen-nitrogen mixture, essentially our air, but intensified tenfold. To us, it's just uncomfortable. To beings not adapted to our atmosphere. A potent toxin, Kvar realized, impressed by the simple yet effective strategy. The storm had intensified outside, with howling winds and driving rain that reduced visibility to mere meters. Conditions that Kvar found nearly unbearable seemed to invigorate the human soldiers, who moved through the deluge with practiced ease. They approached the Scragnon position using natural features for cover, rock formations and vegetation that the aliens had dismissed as irrelevant. The Scragnon, accustomed to fighting on more hospitable worlds, had positioned themselves on open ground that offered clear fields of fire, but little protection from the elements. "Their sensors will be compromised in this weather," Rostova whispered as they observed the alien formation from a concealed position. "Once we breach their perimeter, deploy the atmospheric charges and switch to rebreathers immediately." The attack began with a series of diversionary explosions set by the second team, targeting the landing craft. As Scragnon troops redirected their attention, Rostova's team surged forward with a coordination and speed that belied the harsh conditions. Kvar watched in astonishment as the humans engaged the Scragnon warriors directly. Despite the aliens' superior armor and weapons, the humans fought with a ferocity and adaptability that caught their opponents completely off guard. They used the environment itself as a weapon, directing the Scragnon into unstable ground that collapsed under their weight, exploiting the reduced visibility to approach from unexpected angles, and demonstrating hand-to-hand combat skills that seemed implausibly effective against armored opponents. The atmospheric charges detonated within the Scragnon formation, creating clouds of Earth's concentrated atmosphere. The effect was immediate and devastating. Even through their armored suits, the aliens began to falter as the toxic, to them, air penetrated their systems. Several collapsed entirely, while others fired wildly as their coordination failed. Kvar, protected by his own environmental suit, moved carefully through the chaos to locate the command node. He found it at the center of the formation, a hovering spherical device guarded by two particularly large Scragnon warriors who remained functional despite the atmospheric attack. "Colonel," he communicated to Rostova, "I've located the command node, but it's heavily guarded." "On my way," came her terse reply. Moments later, Rostova appeared beside him, her uniform torn and smeared with mud, but her expression focused. Two more human soldiers flanked her, one bleeding from a wound to his arm, but still moving with determined precision. "Elite guards," Kvar observed, indicating the Scragnon sentries. "Their systems are more robust." Rostova assessed the situation quickly. "We need a distraction." Lieutenant Foster, flank left with the captain. "Sergeant Diaz, with me on the right. When I give the signal, target their vision sensors." The humans moved with surprising stealth despite the challenging terrain. Kvar found himself struggling to keep pace with Lieutenant Foster, whose ability to navigate the slick, muddy ground seemed almost supernatural. When they were in position, Rostova gave the signal, a sharp whistle that cut through the storm's fury. Simultaneously, all four attacked, with the humans firing precisely at the small visual sensors on the Scragnon helmets. The guards reacted with professional efficiency, returning fire with energy weapons that scorched the ground where Rostova had been moments before. But the colonel had already changed position, moving with an agility that Kvar found astounding in Earth's crushing gravity. Lieutenant Foster was hit by a glancing blast that shattered part of his armor, but he continued firing without hesitation. Sergeant Diaz rolled under a Scragnon's guard and attached something to its leg armor, an explosive that detonated seconds later, destabilizing the massive alien. Kvar, seeing an opportunity, targeted the command node support systems with his own sidearm. The Federation weapon was less powerful than those used by the Scragnon, but more precise, and he managed to disrupt the hovering mechanism, sending the sphere crashing to the ground. Rostova immediately pounced on the damaged node, attaching a device of human design to its surface. Neutralizer deployed. "Clear the area." They retreated hastily as the device activated, sending electromagnetic pulses through the command node. The effect rippled outward, disrupting Scragnon communications and control systems throughout the battlefield. Simultaneously, the second human team reported success at the landing craft. They had neutralized the guards and disabled the backup command systems, leaving the Scragnon forces effectively leaderless. Without central coordination, the alien attack faltered. Individual Scragnon warriors continued to fight, but their previously synchronized tactics dissolved into disconnected skirmishes that the humans methodically contained and eliminated. The main Scragnon vessel, observing the failure of their ground forces and now facing the returning Pathfinder, opted for retreat. It recovered what troops it could via emergency transport systems and accelerated out of Earth's orbit, disappearing into faster-than-light travel before either the humans or the Federation vessel could respond. As the storm began to abate, Rostova's team returned to the outpost victorious but sobered by their losses. 3 humans had died in the defense, with many more injured. The facility had sustained significant damage, particularly to its external structures. Yet the mood among the survivors was not one of despair, but of grim determination and even pride. They had faced an advanced alien force and prevailed through adaptability, courage, and intimate knowledge of their harsh world. In the aftermath, as medical teams treated the wounded and engineering crews began repairs, Kvar found himself in a reflective conversation with Colonel Rostova and Dr. Thorne. "Your response was remarkable," the Xylosian captain admitted. "Few species could have repelled a Scragnon attack so effectively, especially with your technological limitations." "We've had lots of practice fighting in impossible situations," Rostova replied, wincing slightly as a medic treated a burn on her shoulder. "It's practically humanity's defining trait. I begin to understand why your world produced such a resilient species," Kvar said. "What we perceived as insurmountable challenges are the very forces that shaped your evolution." "Earth has never been gentle with her children," Dr. Thorne agreed. "But she taught us valuable lessons: adaptability, tenacity, cooperation. We learned early that we couldn't overpower our environment, so we learned to work with it, understand it, and sometimes trick it. The Federation needs to reconsider its classification system," Lyra added, joining their conversation. "The assumptions underlying our understanding of habitable environments and evolutionary potential are clearly flawed." Grak, who had spent the battle assisting in the medical bay, approached with uncharacteristic confidence. "I've seen things today I would have thought impossible," the massive pilot admitted. "Humans handling injuries that would kill most species, treating the most severe trauma with calm efficiency. Medical techniques born of thousands of years of warfare and accident," Dr. Lin explained, joining them. "When your species has spent its entire history breaking, burning, and poisoning itself, you get very good at putting yourselves back together." Kvar contemplated what this discovery meant for the Federation. A species that evolved on a Class 15 Deathworld, possessing both intelligence and remarkable adaptability, would challenge many fundamental assumptions about the development of civilizations. "Colonel Rostova, when we return to Federation space, I intend to recommend formal diplomatic recognition of Earth," Kvar stated formally. "Your world and species represent a significant discovery that could benefit both our civilizations." "We'd welcome the opportunity," Rostova replied, "though I suspect your Federation may find us challenging in more ways than one." "Undoubtedly," Kvar agreed with what might have been the Xylosian equivalent of a smile. "But the most valuable discoveries often are." In the days that followed, as the Pathfinder prepared for departure, the Federation crew continued to learn about humanity and their impossible world. Lyra remained especially fascinated, volunteering to stay behind as a scientific liaison, a proposal that both Kvar and Rostova eventually approved. Grak, to everyone's surprise, including his own, found himself reluctant to leave. The massive pilot had discovered something about himself during the crisis, a resilience he hadn't known he possessed. He requested temporary assignment to assist Lyra, claiming the additional data on human engineering would be valuable, though Kvar suspected his motivations were more personal. When the Pathfinder finally departed, Kvar stood on the bridge watching the blue-green orb of Earth recede on the view screen. It remained, by any objective measure, a Class 15 Deathworld, a planet so hostile that most Federation citizens would consider it uninhabitable. Yet it had produced perhaps the most adaptable, resilient species he had ever encountered. A species that not only survived, but thrived in conditions that the Federation had deemed impossible for intelligent life. Set course for Federation space, Kvar ordered, and prepare a comprehensive report for High Command. Classification, Priority 1. As the Pathfinder accelerated away from the Sol system, another vessel appeared at the edge of Earth's detection range. Different in configuration from both Federation and Scragnon designs, it approached cautiously, its sensors scanning the planet below. In its computer core, environmental analysis programs began processing the data, and warning indicators flashed across control screens. Class 15 Deathworld detected. The cycle of discovery would begin again. But this time, Earth and humanity were ready.